Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We have about a minute or two that we'll give it as other people are joining. But as we're waiting, please go ahead in the chat and let us know where you're joining us from, what organization you're with. We always love to see that. And there's always kind of the added fun if you're passionate about something right now, whether it's work related or not. Maybe it's a new TV show or book that you're obsessed with, share that too. It's always fun to see what people have to share and maybe spark some ideas with other folks. So we'll give it just 1 minute and then we'll get started here. I know if you're in the Indy area, we've been dealing with a lot of rain. Definitely some flooded areas around where I'm at here in Noblesville. So luckily nothing too bad yet, but yeah, definitely ready for some warmer weather. Awesome. Okay, so we are right at 2 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and jump in. As we get started, again, just keep sharing. We love seeing everything come through about what organizations are joining us and where you're joining us from. But welcome to Boardable's March 2026 release webinar. We're very excited about this. These are always really exciting to be able to share some of the new features that we've added and that might be coming soon. I don't want to give anything away here. But yeah, so joining us today is Cody and Alex from our product team. Couple of housekeeping things really quickly. One, this session is being recorded and you should receive that recording in an email immediately after the event ends. If you don't, keep an eye on the Boardable YouTube channel because it'll also be posted there. And if there's any other past webinars or anything, you can find all of that there. So it's actually a really great resource to visit anyways, but that's a couple of ways to get the recording. Just a reminder, it will be recorded. Also, as we're kind of walking through everything today, make sure to share your questions in that questions tab at the bottom right-hand side of your screen if you can. It's a little bit easier for us to keep track of questions that are coming through that way. Of course, if it's easier to share them in the chat, that's okay too. We have David from our team who's behind the scenes who will be answering a lot of those questions. So you'll see him kind of typing as we go through this, but we'll also at the end hopefully have a couple Q&A where we can get to some of those questions. And then finally, we have the reactions icon at the very bottom of your screen. As we're sharing, be sure to give us a thumbs up or those lovely heart eyes if you're excited about something. It's always really interesting to see what people are getting excited about or how they're thinking about using some of these new features. So love to see that. Awesome. So here's our quick plan for today. We'll do some quick introductions. Like I said, Cody Bender, our Chief Product Officer, and Alex, our product manager, is joining us today. I'll let them give kind of a overview of who they are and what they do here at Boardable. We'll go over those feature highlights, demo those new features as well, and then go over some customer resources so that you have some really valuable next steps if you have any questions or you want to see anything in more detail. And then finally, we'll wrap up with some Q&A. So with that, I will kick it over to Cody to kick us off.
First off, I just want to thank everybody for coming. This slide, I think, says exactly how I feel, which is, we only innovate because we understand the experiences and we hear from customers like you, right? So 2,000 plus organizations, 300,000 board members. Everything you see in this webinar, everything that we work on, it's all rooted in the experiences of you guys. And the better we understand them, the more that we get to talk to you, the more we hear from you, the better off we are. So I'm very appreciative. I know the rest of the team is very appreciative. As far as introductions go, I'm our Chief Product Officer. Alex is our product manager who works on the product. We are really the people who try and understand your world and then turn that into innovation. So simple, very straightforward. We work with engineering, we work with sales, service, and support, And we're here to really listen to you and try and solve some of your problems. So, what are some of those problems? So, where have we been focused? We've been really focused recently thinking about governance gaps, and the thing that I think governance gaps cause, and I think most of you probably would agree, is risk. Right? It creates risk. Right? There's things, misalignment between staff and board is a risk of a misunderstanding of a decision being made that is suboptimal, or something not happening because it's in an email thread, or it's an agenda was edited and no one knew about it. And so that's certainly a gap that can cause pretty significant risk. Inconsistently recorded decisions, absolutely, right? Things that you've decided, or things that aren't exactly clear. And even for us internally, every once in a while we'll say, what did we exactly mean a month ago when we put that in, and what we were talking about it? And again, it creates risk of, like, we just lose that opportunity to advance our mission, to work together, to get the right things done. Unclear next steps come directly from inconsistently recorded decisions. Next steps can be really hard when you don't know what you decided. You're looking from memory, you're asking people, it's in email threads, maybe you have your own notes, but it's really unclear. And that's a gap. Again, it can slow you down. The risk is you aren't as productive or as effective in your mission as you could be. And last but not least, and I think this one's really important, and it becomes more and more important over time, is these opaque audit trails, right? Which, a fancy way of saying, why did we do that? Whose decision was it? When did we make the decision? Because sometimes you have to get to the bottom of how did that happen? And if you can't say how it happened, it can be really, really difficult to understand, well, what should we do to remediate that issue or to take the next steps? And so these gaps are things that we hear all the time. So that previous slide around, those 2,000 customers, these are the things that we've boiled down to, hey, these are problems that we have. We certainly very frequently hear them on the way in, right? New customers have some combination of these problems. But even for existing customers, these are things we're always thinking about. Innovation is, how do we improve on that? We might be doing something today that really helps with misalignment, right? Discussions are a really valuable tool. Same with audit trails, being able to look back and say, what were we talking about? Or unclear next steps. We do a lot of that, but we're always trying to make those better. And so these gaps are things that are on our mind, and they're on our mind because, frankly, they're coming directly from our customer base. So the next question is, well, why do these gaps occur, right? Why does this happen? It doesn't happen because we don't care, or we don't, it's an effort issue. Usually it's because these things are really hard to manage. You have volunteers, you have board members, they're in disparate systems, right? They're using email or texting you, they're texting each other. These are hard things, and governance is complex. And so first off, everybody should give themselves some grace, because this is a hard problem to manage. That's why these gaps occur. If it was easy, we wouldn't even be talking about this. This would be straightforward, piece of cake, but it isn't. The second is, it's frequently very time sensitive. A decision is made in a moment, and that recording and that documentation needs to happen in that moment or close to it, because the further away you get, the more error and variation can come into it, right? Memory, unfortunately, I've found, gets worse over time. And so, if you're trying to remember from a month ago what you talked about and why, or even a week ago, it can really be difficult. And that time sensitivity, it needs to happen in the moment, right? And then disjointed tools, things that are in email, things that are in documents, things that are, again, in SMS, all of that can really contribute to these governance gaps. And so, again, we look at this as opportunity. We look at it as, hey, everybody would like to get rid of them. How do we help to get rid of these gaps? How do we attack these specific problems? And a lot of the features and functionality you're going to see demoed today should call back to this. You should see echoes of, we think these are the root causes of those gaps, especially things like time sensitivity, right? Things that we want to make it so that it's happening in the moment you need it. And I would say hard to manage. That's solving for that, making things easier, really one of our sort of core competencies. Like at Boardable, we hang our hat on the fact that we're not just going to solve this problem, we're going to solve it in a way that's streamlined and generally pretty easy as we can make it. Like that's one of the values that we bring to product is yes, you could solve a complex problem with a complex solution. That's not that hard. What's hard is making a complex problem into a solution that's simple. And so that's something that's always in the back of our mind. And that's the feedback we want to get as well. It's not just, oh, I can do it. It's, it's actually kind of hard to do. And we want to understand that because we know that keeps you from doing your best and getting the best results. So knowing why it really helps us, we look at this as, well, what happens if you do solve these, right? And there's some really valuable outcomes here. Accountability, right? And the features you're going to see today that relate to this are all about reviewing and approving agenda items. And this actually has scope. Don't dismiss this one out of hand if you don't have a process like this today. Again, we made it really easy. We've made it easy to be accountable. This is something that we're working on currently that we really think has a legitimate chance to change the way that people build agendas because you can distribute it with trust and accountability. You don't have to do everything yourself, but you know that people are going to be moving things along and you're not just going to get to 2 hours before the meeting and agenda items will be sitting out there. Structured truth. Structured truth, I mean, if you're looking for auditability and being able to use the decisions you make, you've got to have structure to it. People have to be able to look at it and understand it and be able to take that and go do something with it. And so we've been working on formalizing motions and votes. And I'm very excited for you guys to see that. That was something we just released this week. And it's really, really cool how we've moved from a place where you could capture your motions and your votes to, hey, we've given you more structure. This is now an object. And kind of the sky's the limit as to what we can do with that going forward. And then last, but certainly not least, governance clarity makes you stakeholder friendly, which I think a lot of people on this call would agree, critically important to your success. Your stakeholders need to believe, they need to trust, they need to buy in. And one of the major features we released this year and have continued to work on goes directly to how can you publish outcomes, even if it's not a requirement. I'm not required to do this by a law or a regulation, but I can publish outcomes for my stakeholders. I can invite them to go and see what we're working on, why we're working on it, what decisions are being made, what our next steps are. These are transparencies that, when they're hard to do, can definitely be a stumbling block. You may want to do it. It may benefit your organization, but it might be difficult. We've really worked hard to make this sort of seamless, right? You turn on some transparency tools in the app, and it just happens, right? You're not doing extra work. It's just showing up and your stakeholders can access it. So that's generally my intro. That I hope sets you guys up to really understand and see the demos for what they are, right? Which is we're trying to solve problems. We're not just trying to release software. We're trying to solve these problems for you. And we think these are going to be, and we'll continue to do it, but we think these are really going to be helpful in improving governance and really closing up those gaps.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Cody. So before we hand it over to Alex to start dropping these feature updates to us really quickly, we have a poll we'd like you to answer. So let me go ahead and get that launched on your screens. And it's, how confident are you that votes and decisions are completely and accurately documented today? So just go ahead, submit whether you feel very confident about that, or maybe you're on the other end, not feeling very confident at all. Just be transparent. Again, no shame here. We're just trying to get a feel for whether or not you feel like that information is collected correctly. All right, we're starting to get some results in. Okay, some people, the top half are kind of in that somewhat confident, very confident, definitely leaning more towards that somewhat confident. So again, there's just some, not quite feeling as confident as we could. Awesome. Thank you guys so much for filling out that poll. Without further ado, we'll kick it over to Alex to start sharing those feature highlights.
Yeah, thank you, Lavon. Yeah, I'm excited to be here with you all today. I am really glad to see the results from that poll. I think there's what we've released. I think we'll take those folks that are somewhat confident, hopefully to the very, very confident level. And I think for the folks that are in the very confident bucket, we're going to allow you to make this an easier process, like Cody talked about. One of the things that we have experienced with motions and votes specifically is after having customer conversations, and appreciate everyone who supported us as we kind of did research on this and what folks were wanting to see. The thing that always came back was structure and speed. Votes happen fast, right? Like you're trying to get through meetings, you're trying to make sure things are captured. And so we really wanted to build a feature that allowed you to capture motions and votes in a quick fashion and use them throughout the experience within Boardable. Can we go to the next slide? There we go. Great. So one of the things that we've added in here is really kind of collecting and keeping together a motion, a second, the vote, and the results. So that way it's all in one package and you're able to see that very clearly, who raised the motion, who seconded it, how everyone voted. And so that's something you'll see here shortly. You get outcomes instantly. You get to see the roll up of how people are voting as the vote is being recorded. So that's super helpful. And then again, as I mentioned, it's something that can be used across our landscape in our platform to be able to pull it into different areas where it matters. So I'm going to start sharing my screen here to show you what we released. Okay. And this one is new, so we're excited about it. It just came out this week. So essentially, what I'm going to show you is when you go into a meeting. So I'm going to be in our Q1 board meeting here. As long as you have materials published, so we've got an agenda for this meeting, there's now this motions and votes tab at the bottom. I've kind of seeded one here because you can. So that's one of the things that if you know that there's going to be a couple of motions in an upcoming meeting, you can seed those and have them ready to go even faster in the process. So I'm going to take you in first to look at what this vote looks like. We're going to go ahead and edit it. But this is just the ability to approve the meeting minutes. You've got your motion listed here. And say we're actually in the meeting and we're ready to roll. I'm going to go ahead and say that was moved by Devon and seconded by Ava. And essentially what we can do here is you've got a quick tool to mark unanimous if you want to. And you see that roll up at the bottom happening as you do that. Or if you want to go through and capture these votes one by one, you can also do that as well. And what you'll see is it's going to default to whatever the majority vote is. So it's at carried right now, but if I went ahead and cleared that vote and I marked majority no here, you're going to see that it defaults to failed. So essentially you're going to be able to do this in a quicker way. So I'm going to go back, I'm going to mark this as unanimous, and then I'm going to go ahead and hit update because I had already seeded this one, right? It was here before and now I updated it. And it's here and attached to the meeting in that way. So let's go ahead and look at what it would be like creating a new vote. So I could go in here. I've got my agenda to select from, and I know I've seen some of you folks, those agendas can get long. So we didn't want to make this a scrolling experience. We wanted to make sure you would be able to quickly find the things that you needed as you went through and searched. So that's here. You can add the motion in, and you can add motions on any of the items, as many as you want. So it's not like only one motion per agenda item. You can add as many motions as you want. So you can add motion here. Again, going through that process. One thing to note is that before I take any votes, if I want to, I can also show a tabled or withdrawn motion. So that way, if it never went to a vote and say somebody wanted to like change the meeting of the board or the dates of the board retreat that was coming up and they're like, never mind, I'm going to withdraw that. It works best for everybody else. You can still capture that and it'll be recorded on the meeting as well that's been withdrawn. So you've got those that information there from the motions and votes perspective. And so what I want to show you now is kind of how that pulls through the system. So if we go into minutes and I go into my minutes and edit it, I already kind of started here from the agenda. I'm going to go back to that approval of meeting minutes. I'm going to pull in a decision. I could type this decision if I wanted to, like old school, or I can just go and grab that vote record and pull it right in. And it's going to pull in the motion, who it was moved by, seconded by, what the outcome was, and what individual votes were. And then I'm also able to edit it from there if I want to. So I can say, maybe we need to update the date on the annual report to reflect the change. So now I've also got a note here in my minutes that maybe I don't need as part of the vote record itself. there is a notes portion on the vote, but you can also change and edit the minutes from this space as well. And then the last thing I want to kind of show here is we know how important it can be to have transparency and understanding of how people voted. And so we also added it to our reporting. So if we go here, I can go to a report type. If I look at motions, I can say, you know what? I'm not sure what our governance committee has voted on here recently, and I'd like to see that. I can pull that report really quickly. It's got the ability to download it as a CSV if I need to pull it out, but I can see yes count, no count, all of that. And then I can also take a little bit of a deep dive here to see individual votes as well. So that's in there. And then the other piece is voting, which we have generally heard from you all happens on from a transparency side, wanting to hear who voted how and when. And so that is an important place for us to be able to one click, be able to provide you a report of how a certain board member or committee member has voted, and it'll give you the ability to download a CSV for this as well, to talk through or to be able to have that one comprehensive record to share for a transparency or even just internal data auditing. So that's kind of full scope from motions and votes. Cody, before I kind of move on, anything you want to share on this one?
Sure. I mean, I think one of the things, just watching the demo, some of the things are when you're screen sharing like this, like when Alex, when you went to select the decision on our side, it's literally just like selecting a decision like you would today. But instead of having to just type in the decision, you actually get the option to grab a vote, and it will bring it in and bring all that content in. This deprecates the voting that was in minutes previously. So if you are accustomed to going to minutes and having to go through typing a decision and then going through, this gets rid of that. I would say for Mariah and Brandy, who both have questions in the chat, this is version 1, right? This is us upgrading the voting. Think of it as the voting platform, right? This is the way we capture votes. Weighted voting and voting according to bylaws, right? Incorporating things like quorum. Those are all things that now become much more possible for us. And so we'll be evaluating all of those. If those are things you would like, which I'm guessing they are because you are asking about them, please feel free to let us know in chat which of those things would be most valuable to you. Because we'd love to know.
Yeah, absolutely. So that kind of brings us full circle on motions and votes. If there's not questions that we want to dive into right now, we can kind of head on to the next of agenda workflows. That sound good, everybody? Levon?
Yeah, that sounds great. Actually, I know David is kind of typing furiously behind the scenes to answer some of those questions. So we'll answer some more at the end, but we'll go ahead and keep moving here. So before we jump into that, we have one more poll for you. So let me go ahead and get this live. And this time we're asking, do you have a process to review and approve agenda items before publishing? And a couple options there, yes, feel good about it, and then not sure, or it may vary by meeting. So go ahead and add in your votes, please. Seeing a lot of people coming through with somewhat an informal or inconsistent process, it looks like there. Not surprising. I feel like that can kind of be like wrangling cats. So yeah, it can be wild sometimes. Awesome. So yeah, seeing a lot over 40% in that somewhat range. Awesome. So we'll keep going. Alex, take it away with the approval workflow.
Yeah, absolutely. So what you're seeing in an image here is a screenshot of a prototype that we're working on, and you can kind of see in orange there, it says coming soon. This is something we're really excited about and have been putting some work into and doing a lot of customer research to understand all of the needs and the edges of this feature that we want to make sure we deliver on. And so the goal here is to make sure that you can move an agenda from draft to review to approved, right? So it can be difficult sometimes to understand if edits were made, or if someone needs an approval over a topic, if it's even going to make it on the agenda. If there's someone outside of maybe the invitees to the meeting that wants to submit an agenda item for it to be discussed, all of those things can be difficult to manage and a lot of information to take in as you're building an agenda. So the idea here is to make sure that there is clarity on all of those agenda items as we have in the agenda builder today, but then adding in that approval process and approval tree so that you understand who's on first to make sure that this thing is good and that it continues to move through that workflow as things are approved or as there needs to be edits or changes to any agenda items. And then you also have the ability to override for things like, if someone's on vacation or on paternity or maternity leave, you have the ability to say, they definitely are usually a part of this process, but we need to override them for this. And that all gets caught in an audit trail. And so you can see all of the changes that were made to that agenda item, and everything is very clear on how it started to how it finishes as it ends up on your agenda, and making sure that you have really strong confidence in what's going to be shared with both your board and potentially the public. So that's kind of the overview here. Let's go ahead to the next slide. I'm going to talk over this a little bit, and then I'll definitely invite Cody for his thoughts on this too. But just want to talk through a little bit of an animation of where the prototype is currently at. And so as you can see, we're going to land folks on a dashboard of being able to say, like, what agenda items do I have to approve, right? So this isn't overwhelming. It's more so focused on what you need to be doing. And then as you get into those approvals, you can see things like the pending reviews that you have. Once you get into an item, you can even see the diff or what like changes have been made, that edit history that's about to show here of what changed and why did they change it, so you can kind of understand that process, and then where it sits within that approval process. So has that just started? Is it all the way through? Are we ready to put this on the agenda? And so really this is trying to cover all of those bases, a comprehensive overview of agenda items, so that way you make sure you're really excited and so it's a thorough review of those agenda items that land on your final agenda. Any thoughts there, Cody?
I mean, I think you covered it well. I mean, the big I think problems we were solving here are allowing for collaboration. It's got a little more auditability, right? So the ability to control it, the ability to know who did what, when did they do it, like that screen that you're seeing there. It's showing you the difference between what started and what got to you, so that you can have an idea of, do I want to approve this? We also just I think the great thing about this particular feature is, for one, I think this is an overhaul generally to agendas, right? So we're looking to make it faster, easier, better. And as I was talking about with the voting platform, we really want to give you an agenda platform that offers some extensibility. So there are features behind this move that I think will be also really well received. But this one is about, hey, can a committee chair submit an agenda item with a document and have an approval tree to make sure that it gets onto a main board's agenda? A lot of it is about tracking, but at the end of the day, a significant portion was, I think we can make this easier and clearer and better. And so we've been working really hard on this. This is something that I'm very excited for. In a similar vein to votes and motions, voting and motions, I just think this is going to be something really, really interesting. And I would say, even if you don't have a formal approval process, this surface to build agendas and build agenda items, I think is going to be really refreshing to probably everyone on the call. There was a question about this, Alex, that I think I would tie in, which is, there was a question from Thomas about, is there going to be a meeting agenda best practices seminar? As soon as we have this feature released and we're ready to go, we are going to do an updated training for agendas and meetings, because it will change the flow somewhat, but we'll do it at that point, because we want everybody, when they have access to it, we want you guys to be able to use this to its fullest.
Yeah, definitely. And that's one of the things that's always on our mind as a product crew, as we think about releasing features, of not having it be a jarring experience for you all. So that is one of the things that we think about when we release items, is like, how do we make this bite size and create an ease and change management as you adapt to kind of the evolution of a feature. So definitely a great call out, and something that we'll want to make sure we cover our bases on. So yeah, but really excited, like Cody said, I think there's a lot of value in this one. So excited to keep moving on it. Awesome. I think we can move on to our last one that we're going to walk through today. This is not new to everyone. If you've been to some of our recent webinars, you may have seen public site, but I really want to kind of draw back to Cody's intro and talking about the transparency piece. So this for us has been a labor of love that we've kind of brought to market, that we're learning so much about from our audience as they continue to use it and what the needs are there. So I'm going to go through a couple of features from a high level to talk about some new things with public site. But for those of you who don't know or use public site, it's part of our packaging, and it can be added on to your subscription. And so that's part of what we're working through is when people need this, right? Do you have a transparency component? Do you have an audience that you want to bring into what you're doing and allow them to see how things are tracking and what you're doing as a board? And so this is a really great way to do that. So I'm going to kind of go through these one by one. So I'll start sharing my screen here. But at first I want to show you how we get there. Okay. So from when you're in board management, you've got this switcher up at the top, and if you have public site, you would just click there and it's going to take you to the back end. So think of this as the place to really kind of customize the look and feel of a public site, to be able to control what makes it on there, what doesn't make it on there. But what the public sees is this view. So they're going to see a really fresh, clean look at the meetings that you have, the things that you want to make public. And so they're all here for them to see. The next meeting is featured. You have the ability on the back end, I'll show you again here. When you're in meetings, you can feature meetings by starring them. So that shows up here on the front end in this featured meetings side. And then as you go into the details of a meeting, it's going to show the agenda to them. One of the main things that we've heard from some of our customers is that they have pretty strict rules about for transparency of when they publish the materials, and the public being known that they were published either 48 hours in advance or whatever it might be. So you can see that over here on the right. But essentially you're able to see the full agenda, or if you kind of want to page through the agenda this way in a bigger view, you can then see in line some of these pieces here. So that's really kind of the walkthrough of meetings on the public site. But I'm going to show you specifically, let's take this agenda, for instance. Say I get down to old business and there's board retreat logistics. Maybe I want to make my the whole agenda available, but I don't necessarily need the public to understand the details of our board retreat. So I'm going to take that and make it a private item. So if I go into my materials here and I edit in the agenda, I'm going to scroll down to that, go to that board retreat logistics, and I can mark it as private. And so this keeps it on our agenda in board management, but does not publish it to the public. And so you'll see as I go down here, it's going to have a private tag letting anybody know in this view that it's private. You would also see that on the member meeting page. So if I'm a board member and I'm experiencing this, they're also going to have the indication that it's private. And so if I go back to my full view within the public site, you can see now that that agenda item has been removed and the public can't see and anything that you mark as private. So it allows you to kind of have this two versions of the agenda without having to recreate them, so that you're able to publish the things that you want people to see and keep private what is just board specific information. Okay, I'm going to go back to meeting prep page here. And now I'm going to talk about one of the items that we've heard from our folks about, whether they have people who are really interested from the public, or maybe want to keep tabs on what the board is doing. Sometimes this is media where people need to be able to provide some information. And that's the ability to subscribe to updates about any activity from a specific committee or the board or whatever it might be. So at the bottom of our public site, there's this subscribe to updates. So I'm going to go in, I'm going to add my email address here. And I'm going to select that I want to get updates from the board. And so I'm going to subscribe, and then it's going to let me know, this is so folks don't get spammed. You're going to have to go check your email and say, yeah, I actually did want to get that information. So if I go into my inbox, I can see I've got that confirmation that I've subscribed to the board. I can confirm. Oop, into an issue there. But essentially what that's going to do is that anytime I make an adjustment to the something like the agenda, so if I've edited that agenda, I've made it an item here, I'll just go and make another edit just for the heck of it. Okay, and then I publish those updates. It's then going to also notify me that there's been an agenda update for the board as well. So I'm going to get email notifications about an update to an agenda. I'm going to get email updates about any meetings that are put on the calendar. And so that's what I'm going to get information about every time I come through here. After I've subscribed, it's going to let me know that those things are changing or that that meeting has been set. And so you can subscribe to all committees, or you can subscribe to certain committees that you want to see as a part of that process of the subscribing to updates. Great. And then one last thing, public site-wise, that I'll walk us through is just the ability to publish a vote as well. So say you're voting and you want to make sure that that vote is transparent to your constituents, you can go into your motions and votes. We have this earlier vote that we had. So I can do this two ways. I can one-click publish it to the public site, or I could go in and edit the motion as well. If I hit update and publish, it's now going to show that it's on the public site. It's going to show that this is going to be in green here to let you know that it's been published to the public site. And so if I go back into my meeting here and I show these, you can see it both in this view in the approval of the meeting minutes, and then you can also see it in the full agenda. If I go there, it's going to show the motion, move by, outcome, all of that, and how everyone voted. So you also can have that transparency in voting with your constituents. The last thing I wanted to kind of cover, a couple of things here from a public site perspective. You'll see this accessible PDF toggle down here. We are working very hard to make sure that both WCAG and ADA compliant, as you're presenting things to the public, that it makes sure that they would be able to access those materials. So if you were to download this document that you see here, it would be an accessible PDF for them to be able to navigate through. And essentially that's things like, alt tags or making sure a screen reader can read it. And so those are things that are really important for us as we kind of thought about a public component. And we know a lot of folks are going to be held to some new compliance ADA deadline here coming up in late April. And so we're working really hard to make sure that anybody who would interact with our public sites and uses assistive technology would be supported in that and could get everything they need from interacting. I think that's it from the public site side. Anything you would share there, Cody?
I mean, you covered a lot of ground. I think that the probably the high level item I would share is that the public site is generally for organizations that have a public transparency requirement. But if you're sitting there and you're saying, I don't have this requirement, but I'd love to be able to share some of these things publicly with my stakeholders or important people to my organization, ask us about this, right? Reach out to support, reach out to customer success, reach out to us, because we would love to hear how you might use this type of transparency in your day-to-day, even if you're not required to. Because ultimately, I think that this is a feature that has a lot of utility. The subscribe functionality for people who they want to know what's going on, but they're not part of your board. Maybe they rolled off, or maybe they're just volunteering. these are things that if you're comfortable publishing them, and we have safeguards there, right? Where you can publish certain things and say, yes, I want that to be on the public site, and no, I don't. So if parts of your agenda are sensitive and parts are not, you can choose those. But yeah, definitely some creativity here around, we think this is a really powerful tool. And so don't rule yourself out if you're not a public organization.
Yeah. Great. Okay. Do we want to try to cover off on questions here? Do we want to get through roadmap first?
I've been answering a lot of questions.
Okay, perfect.
I know David has been as well. So we're trying to. Public site is part of Joylene, you have a question here. Public site is part of our professional package. So it's the one that's published on our website today. So we have 3 packages. So Essentials, Professional, and Professional Plus. And so public sites are a part of that middle package. Product roadmap. You guys, hopefully you guys are repeat visitors to our webinar where we talked about some of the recent innovations. If you haven't checked out the meeting engagement dashboard, I highly recommend it. It's part of the meeting preparation page. Once you publish your materials, you can start to see how your board is interacting with it, or your invitees are interacting with those items. It's at the top of the list on the left, so you can just go there and see who's opened the board packet, who's looked at the agenda, who's looked at supporting documents. Clearly, we have a lot of AI features that hopefully you've tried as well. The in-meeting AI assistant, the AI-generated minutes. I can say not only are both of those, or actually all 3 of these in the recent innovations, really handy and useful. We use them all the time because, it's sometimes you just need you need minutes, but they don't need to be perfect, right? You don't need them in a certain format. You don't need to, you're not going to publish them to everybody, but you want to keep track of it. All of those work really, really well. And we're committed to keeping them up to date. So we've got work scheduled around updating the models, right? If you're, at all on the internet, you've heard about the models and the advances they're making. We're not trying to be on the bleeding edge there, but we are trying to keep up, right? We are updating the models as appropriate, testing them, and then getting them out to try and give you guys the best experience possible. Next, motions and votes next, but also out as of 2 days ago. So it is one of the next things. Approval workflows, I mentioned, we're looking at sort of late April, May for that release. A lot of the work has already gone into it, and we're testing it and we're tweaking it, and we're working with our colleagues to try and get it to you guys. And that includes trainings around post-release, right? Because it is a difference. It is something that's a different way of doing things. We want to make sure you can do that. Accessibility upgrades are coming as well. And then member assistance and support from an AI perspective, like I said, updating some of the models. For later, this is definitely where we start to get into the area of our roadmap that is still a little more, I wouldn't say theoretical, but it's things that we're working through the concepts as opposed to actually building the features themselves. But a couple of things we have on here. I'll start with upgraded reporting and analysis. This is something that we feel like AI can do a really good job of and get very specific people within an organization to the things they need, right? So it's not a one size fits all. It is I've got a question. Can you give me data that supports this? So I know that there was a question earlier regarding, it was about voting, right? It was about can I see these votes? I see who voted on what and historically. Our goal is to make that as that question, right? Which is hey, I'd like to know how all of my members have voted historically. And I think that's very reasonable, and it's something that we sort of have line of sight on how we want to do that. Board member engagement agent, be ready for this. This is something that we've been talking about a lot lately. We know that for a lot of boards, getting your board member not to necessarily engage with the board only, but to engage with Boardable, right? To say, I'm going to take the time to log in, go get to those documents, right? Know where I'm supposed to be. And it can create a burden, right, on staff. And it also creates friction for them to be able to interact with the board and help with the mission. And so we're really focused on how could we help board members get what they need from Boardable to be really effective and frictionless. We wanted to do this in a really frictionless way. So I know it's a very high level description of it because I don't want to commit to any one sort of track there, but I just want everybody on the call to know board member experience with Boardable is high on our list, very high on our list. And we are really focused over the coming months, I would say, in trying to solve some problems there to make everyone's life easier across the board. So that's our upcoming product roadmap.
Awesome. All right. I'll take over really quickly to talk about a few more ways that if you need help today or in the future, we have several different places you can go to get additional information. So first of all, the Boardable website, I know I linked it a couple of different times, but that's definitely the place to go as a starting point for an overview, whether you're looking for plan information or we have a really great blog that has just like general nonprofit education resources, event information there, all kinds of different things. So I definitely recommend taking a look at that. Secondarily, if you haven't heard, we have launched the Nonprofit Network, which is a Slack community. So if you're looking for a peer community where you can get in and ask questions like, how are other organizations doing this thing? Or who has ideas about how to do, this event or something like that, and you want to really connect with people that have maybe been there and done that, this is the place to do it. So a link to this Slack community will be coming in the follow-up email to this event, which should hit your inboxes as soon as we finish up here. But if you don't get that, feel free to email marketing@boardable.com and I'll make sure that you get the link to join that community. I think it's really great to just have that peer connection. And just remember that there are others out there that are struggling with the same things or maybe have been there before. Next is our expert office hours. So this is a really good option if you want something a little bit more personalized, where we have an expert who is in the nonprofit industry come and do a webinar like setting, but we have your microphones turned on so you can ask those real-time questions. If you're struggling with something or if you need real-time help, you can actually join that and ask that expert, and they're able to give you real-time insight and advice in how to maybe attack that. So those are really good opportunities. All of those are listed on our website. We also send out email notifications. So if you haven't joined our email list, make sure that you, again, email that marketing@boardable.com and we'll get you added so you can get those updates. And then finally, we have group training opportunities. So I've seen a lot of people ask about very specific, how can I get my board trained? How can I get some admin training? Luckily, we have really great training opportunities where you get a clear walkthrough of some of those best practices if you join those sessions. And it's just a really good way to make sure that everyone gets aligned quickly. Now, this is customer exclusive, so just something to keep in mind, but that's always available too. So if you need access to that, make sure you reach out to support@boardable.com and they'll make sure that you get you the links that you need. So really quickly, I'm going to jump to the next slide. These are those email addresses that I was talking about. So many people have had product feedback. I love doing these webinars because we just get so much information and ideas, and I just love it. But if you want to share those ideas and suggestions about the product, go ahead and email productfeedback@boardable.com. That's the place to send those ideas. Even if, a week from now, you're like, oh, it'd be really great if this worked this way. Go ahead and send that. That's where we check to continue the innovation of Boardable. So definitely email us those ideas. Secondly, if you're looking for those group training opportunities, or you have a question about something specific on how Boardable works, or if really you just want to talk through better processes, I recommend reaching out to our support team. They are responsive, they are knowledgeable, and honestly, there's just great people behind the screen who are waiting to answer your questions. So make sure you reach out to support@boardable.com. It's really such a great value that you get with using the Boardable platform. So make sure you use that resource. And then finally, if you're interested in Boardable and you haven't used it before, but after seeing some of these features, you're excited to implement some of that, be sure to reach out to sales@boardable.com, and we can get you any information you need specifically about plans or your pain points and what those solutions might look like. So now to the fun part, we have a few minutes here. I know we've been scrambling to answer so many questions that have come in. Like I said, I love doing these events because it's so awesome to see the engagement and how people are thinking about using these new features. So I don't know if either of you saw some questions that you wanted to go ahead and call out because you think it would be valuable for the group, or if you want me to go ahead and call some out.
I've answered a ton of questions. So if you are scrolling through chat, we've been frantically answering. You guys have great questions. So we've been frantically trying to answer. One thing I would call out that this is something that we're going to reconcile on our side, which is we currently have functionality called public page. Public page is very different than public site. Public site is an entire website that houses all of these meetings, and it has policies and everything that Alex just demoed. That's public site. Public page is a single link that goes to a web page for that meeting. That, even if you turn off public site, you will see that in a meeting at times, right? So don't worry that public sites are turned on for you and that everyone's seeing it. It's probably not the case. Largely, for most of you, it's not on. And that public page, you have to enable that specifically for a specific meeting. So people on this call, unless you've enabled public sites, rest easy. Nothing is enabled, and we still that entry is still there for public pages. We'll be reconciling those two. We know that that's a little confusing that we have two things that are named so closely, even though they're very different things. We're working to reconcile that particular issue.
Yeah, I think the only other thing I saw, Levon, was potentially about timing of some of the features that we talked about today. So just to share, everything from like motions and votes and public site, those are currently available in specific plans in the app. And then approval workflows, we're eyeing the summer as kind of a vague return for you on timeline, but we're really excited about the progress that we've made, and we think that's a very feasible timeline for us.
Awesome. So like I said, I know we've been answering a lot of questions in the chat. If we didn't get to your question, hang tight. We always do a follow-up afterwards and make sure we reach out with any information that would be helpful. And I know I told a couple of you that I would be sure to follow up about certain features available in your plan. So we'll do that as well. But thank you so much for joining us. Like Cody said at the beginning, we always really love doing these. It's always so exciting to get kind of real-time feedback on them. And hopefully you'll put them to good use. Thanks for joining us.